Senator Lyons. Senator Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr Acting Deputy President. I'd just like to begin by reflecting on Senator McDonald's comments this afternoon. Those people that know Senator McDonald who are listening on the broadcast will know that he's a very enthusiastic, energetic senator for Queensland, but he was only half right when he reflected on how great far north Queensland is, because the other half of that statement is, of course, how great the far northwest of northern Australia is, that place we know as the Kimberley region. And during the recess, I had an opportunity to catch up with Elsie Archer and others. Senator Rachel Seward was there. The new Regional Development Minister, Alana McTiernan, was also there at the Kimberley Regional Forum, where with local shires we discussed a variety of issues that are important to continuing jobs growth, continuing economic development opportunity for the very large numbers of Indigenous communities, large and remote numbers of Indigenous communities. I had the opportunity to talk about native title reform and how I think native title reform is necessary if we are going to sort of lift and change that terrible scourge that is Indigenous disadvantage by giving people better access, Indigenous people better access to how they might utilise their lands for better resource extraction, for better pastoral lease operations. The Kimberley is a remarkable place. I know that people say that, but when you visit there, and I know that, Mr Acting Deputy President, you're a regular visitor to the Kimberley region, when you visit there you can't help but be impressed by its natural beauty, that's a given, but what is happening up there in terms of the pursuit of innovative agricultural techniques is really remarkable. I'm not so worried about who brings good ideas to the people of the Kimberley, but you've got to agree that the Water for Food initiative, which was a Colin Barnett Royalties for Region, Mia Davies initiative, has really transformed key parts of the Kimberley, and it's a very, very exciting part of the world. Can I also just extend my very, very personal thanks to Elsa Archer. People who know her know that she's a stalwart of the Derby community, a stalwart of the Kimberley community, and I'm very, very heartened by the messages of encouragement that I've received from Elsa Archer over the last few days, and of course people across the Kimberley. But I'd just like to talk this afternoon about a great deed, a great deed. I'm an active member of a variety of community groups across Western Australia, but one of the proudest groups that I'm involved in is the Perth Rotary Club. And the Perth Rotary Club, with the Salvation Army in Western Australia, under the fantastic leadership of Rebecca Tolstoy, has had for the second year what they call the Path of Hope Foundation Gala Ball. It raises hundreds of thousands of dollars to beat domestic violence. It raises that money to support the great work that the Salvation Army does at the Women's Hostel in Perth's inner northern suburbs. Not appropriate for me to identify its location, but they do some fantastic work. The Path of Hope Foundation has worked tirelessly since its establishment in 2012 to break the cycle of family and domestic violence. The Foundation's ethos is reflected in its name, to create positive pathways for women affected by violence. The great state of Western Australia is where I call home, and I'm privileged to call myself a very proud West Australian. But it shocked me to learn that last year, in 2015-2016, WA Police received more than 50,000 calls for help from people reporting cases of family or domestic violence. If you break it down, that's approximately 158 calls a day, and it's very alarming when those statistics are shared with us. What do those statistics actually mean, though? They mean 1 in 3 women have experienced physical and/or sexual violence perpetrated by someone who is known to them. It means that domestic and family violence is the principal cause of homelessness for women and their children. It means that Indigenous women and girls are 35 times more likely than the wider female population to be hospitalised due to family violence. The Gala brought together a diverse crowd. There were almost 600 people there, from the private sector, from governments, from Rotary clubs, to entertainers and entrepreneurs. It was a fantastic night. We were all there, though, for one cause. Many people had a great night. I was privileged to sit next to the West Australian Governor, Her Excellency Kerry Sanderson, who is a great West Australian, a great ambassador for Western Australia. But more than that, people were united in their singular mission, the pursuit of one cause, and that was to celebrate the women and children who have survived family and domestic violence. Rebecca Tolstoy, the Path of Hope Foundation Director, spoke powerfully and eloquently about why we were there. She said, "Tonight is all about one very special group of people, people who have chosen life, chosen a better future for themselves and their children, and who are breaking that cycle of violence hour by hour, day by day, week by week. Their courage is to be commended, and tonight is their night. Their actions, their bravery, is a beacon of hope to others wanting to break the cycle and to choose a life free of violence." The ball was a strong and powerful demonstration that the community was more determined than ever to break that terrible cycle that we know as family and domestic violence. During the course of the evening, we all reflected on the need to provide safe and secure environments for women and their children who find themselves affected by domestic and family violence. I'm pleased to share that the government has announced a $100 million package last year to help prevent violence against women. But we were reminded at the ball we all have a role to play in raising awareness about this scourge across our community. It's our responsibility to educate and empower the community to take action. It's interesting, Mr Acting Deputy President, because as I've become more aware of this issue, I've become alarmed at the depth to which it sort of permeates our community, how important it is not to have government addressing this problem, but how important it is to have community partnerships addressing this problem. And what is particularly unique about this Path of Hope Foundation, it's not just a ball once a year. This year's ball was the second year it's been held. It is actually a foundation that works on the ground to support women and their children from domestic violence. It works in refurbishing homes for people, refurbishing the women's hostel, providing education access for young children who are traumatised because they're no longer able to live in their normal or most reliable family environments. It supports these young children when they go to the local primary school. It supports these young children by building a playground in the hostel. Let me share with you the entirety of Rebecca Tolstoy's speech to the gathering last Saturday night, July the 29th. Might have been 2 Saturday nights ago, actually, Mr Acting Deputy President. Rebecca said, "We all know how wonderful it is to live in Western Australia and to be known as a West Australian. As someone who has chosen WA as my home, I love the can-do spirit. I love its warm, generous and friendly people, and the willingness of West Australians to rally behind people when they choose to have a go," Rebecca said. She went on to say, "Let me begin by welcoming all of you who are enjoying the Path of Hope Gala Ball for a second time and marvelling at how this simple but important gesture is going from strength to strength. One person who captures the spirit of Western Australia is for a second time tonight's major sponsor," Rebecca said. And I think it is important to recognise the contribution of a very, very committed West Australian, a name that is well known to us, a successful West Australian business person, but someone who does support many, many charities throughout the community, and that is, of course, Mrs Reinhardt, who through Hancock Prospecting and the Roy Hill Project generously provided support for the evening's event. Rebecca went on to say that we're truly blessed by the continuing support of other long-term financial donors to the Gala Ball, Mr Stan Perrin, Mr David Reid, Mr Alan Tribe and Mr Richard Lockwood. Rebecca said, "Since our last Gala Ball, Path of Hope has travelled the world with its gesture of hope and empowerment and has been greeted with open arms and encouragement." Rebecca said, "From Perth, Western Australia to Atlanta, Georgia, to the meeting rooms of the United Nations in New York, to Stockholm, Sweden and the halls of the United Nations in Geneva, the world has recognised what we in Perth have known for a long time. We have taken the rich heritage of the trusted and complemented it with the innovation of a 21st century approach. Our trusted local partnership between Perth Rotary and the Salvation Army is not only empowering the victims and survivors of domestic violence in our community, but is on the cusp of being a vehicle for liberating the lives of women and children around the world." This is a very important point, because this Path of Hope Foundation is like none other I have seen. It's not just a very, very good West Australian idea. This idea is now one that has captured the imagination of the United Nations, captured the imagination of friends and supporters in Sweden, in Geneva. This is a truly remarkable local initiative born in Western
Smith,
Australia.
your time has expired.